You know, I like what Abraham Maslow said. He said, if all that you have in your hand is a hammer, everything around you appears to be a nail. It means that if all that you have is a hammer, even if around you is a bolt or it's a screw, you will want to hit it with that hammer and you will bend them and you'll start blaming them for being weak because you have hidden them with a wrong tool. So what Abraham Maslow meant by that was that if all you have as a leader in particular is just one skill and you are faced with many different people around you, and then you will use that same approach and try to reach out to all of them, which doesn't really work. So we get leaders that get promoted to different levels, and you find that the skill set is still the same. They have not increased their skill set, and they are not able to connect with their team members because we're all different, let's be honest. So in this time right now, which we're talking about now, the knowledge economy that we are in. So what happens in the knowledge economy is that we are no longer just leading bodies, but we are leading brains. Now, when you are a leader and you're leading brains, the question is, how much about the brain do you really understand? Because the brain is such it's a miraculous, tool that we have. It's a machine that we are carrying between our ears, and we need to be able to understand it in order for us to optimize how we do things and to bring out the best in others, because leadership is all about bringing out the best in others. So I have, a menu that I actually use out of the program that I put together called the Veli Ndaba NeuroEngineering Leadership Effect. So this program, it actually helps leaders to get empowered and to understand themselves better. It heightens their level of self-awareness and self-confidence as well, because when you know better, you do better. So now, I've just shared here the NeuroLeaders Toolkit that leaders really, really need to make it in this economy. And I'm talking about this knowledge economy, where people are hired to think, not just to be bodies moving around. And thinking is a skill that needs to be developed. And for the brain to really think, it needs to be in a certain environment that will be conducive for it to think. Now, as leaders, we need to understand really what kind of environment is that. Some of the topics that I get to cover in this tool, this high-performance tool that I'm talking about, just to build the NeuroLeaders Toolkit, I talk about the neuroscience of brain mechanics. What is it? What is the brain, and how has the brain evolved over the years? And how has the brain developed? And how is the brain put together? How is it being driven? Where are the emotions, and where do we have the cognitive abilities in the brain? Because when you understand that, then you'll be able to understand and to activate the relevant part of the brain based on what you need. So once you've done that, then it means you'll be empowered to understand humanity, to understand how the brain works. The second topic in our menu is what we call the neuroscience of fixed versus growth versus steward mindset. So when you talk about the fixed mindset, we're talking about the fixed way of thinking about things. It's when you see things either in black and white. It's either I have it or I don't have it. And now, when you have a fixed mindset, whenever things happen to you, you take them personal, which is a problem. You don't separate yourself from the problems or the problem from yourself. So we need to work on that kind of thinking so that you will be transformed from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, so that when something happens to you, you get to understand that it's not happening to you, but it's happening for you. Because when something happens for you, it is there to help you grow. It is there to help you develop as a person and become a better person, because problems present opportunities in your life. So when you look at it that way, that's a kind of a mindset that I help teams and leaders to work on, because when you do that, and then you'll be able as well to bring in the third element that I get to talk about, which is the steward mindset, where we have to take that responsibility to make sure that whatever we touch, it will never ever be the same again. We leave whatever we touch in a much better shape than we found it. That's what steward leadership is all about. The steward mindset is all about. So when I talk about these three mindsets, I've got programs. I take people through this process where they get to understand that we are not fixed, and it's not just the way we are born, but we can change and create the environment that is conducive for us to adapt the mindset that we require at the time. Topic number 3, I talk about the neuroscience of emotional intelligence and leading with empathy. Now, you cannot talk about the neuroscience of emotional intelligence and leading with empathy before you understand the brain. So the brain is something that needs to be understood, because when you talk about emotional intelligence, you're talking about emotions and you're talking about intelligence. Now those two, they sit in different places in the brain, call them departments in the brain. So you cannot therefore expect them to understand each other, because most of the time they are fighting, but for a good reason. So those are the reasons that I get to explain, so that leaders and their teams can get to understand as well. And then the fourth topic that I talk about is the neuroscience of peak performance. Here companies saying we want to achieve peak performance, but peak performance is linked to different things as well. For peak performing teams, you need to have a peak performance culture. And I get to unpack how to form this culture, how to create this culture in order for leaders to be able to allow their teams to perform at their peak. Because once again, brain rules have to be understood in order for one to perform at their peak. And then topic number 4 is the neuroscience of team effectiveness. Let's be honest. Effectiveness is linked to trust and connection. And there can never be any connection if there's no trust. And trust cannot be bought over the counter. But trust is something that is developed. And now how to develop trust? Because now the thing is, our brains are swimming in neurochemicals. We've got the chemistry, we've got the pharmacy that is taking place in our brains. Now how do we activate that to ensure that this chemical, specifically called oxytocin, is activated, which is more about bonding, which is more about trust, where people can be able to work together with that understanding that they are a team. They are not just a group of individuals that are working together, but we are no longer now talking about human capital, but I'm talking about social capital. So when I talk about social capital, I'm talking about the connectedness, the interconnectedness between those, like human capital. So that's something that's very important, and I get to deal with so many of these topics. We create them based on what you need and on your requirements, and based on where you are, as well as based on your budget. So this is something that can help you get started, as a leader, and to get your team on the right path, and to ensure that whoever you are promoting in your organization, they are well prepared to deal with understanding how the brain works and how human nature operates. Because if you don't understand how the human nature works, that will be a challenge, because you will be creating threat instead of creating pleasure in the workplace. So what kind of a leader are you? Do you really want to create pleasure, or do you want to create pain in your team? So now that's a choice that you have to make. And Veli Ndaba is here for you to help you transform from a place of mental darkness to mental light. And when that happens, you'll get to see there will be happiness, and there will be high levels of productivity, which you call peak performance in the workplace. So I'm here, and I'm waiting on you to give me a call, to come and help you, and let's work together and transform the workplace from a place of making a loss to high levels of productivity and profits. Are you ready to move from mental darkness to mental light? Then I'm here. Please do give me a call and let's engage further.